So today I want to introduce you to someone I adore. We met a while back in the DOO certification, and I love talking to her, and I'm super excited for this interview today. So please welcome Rachel Pereyra. Rachel, hello. How are you?
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk with you.
I am super excited. I love this. I used to see Rachel's face every week for, I think, 3 months. I was the agency coach in the director of ops certification when Rachel was going through, and I loved it. It was like the best group. We all stayed. We all have a Voxer channel together still, and love it. So excited to have you here today. So can you tell everyone a little bit about you and your business so we kind of know the gist of what's going on?
Yeah, so I joined this online business rat race in 2020. My business is technically a pandemic baby, like so many others. I was freelancing before the pandemic as like a virtual assistant, kind of like basically whatever work I could find that would pay me money. Like, let's be honest. And when the pandemic hit, and I started working from home, and it just started making me reevaluate everything, I decided to go full time in my business by the end of 2020. So I've been full time for almost 2 years now. I have an operations support agency. We transitioned into an agency model about a year ago, which lines up with finishing all the coaching with the DOO certification and with Kelly. And it's just been a speeding railroad car on fire since. Like, great, super fun, but also really fast. And the first year as an agency owner, I feel like they don't warn you enough that it is absolute insanity. Even with knowing so many friends who have agencies, they're all like, oh, it's okay, I just want to quit my own business every day. And I'm like, ha. And they're like, no, like that was us warning you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't know that.
I thought we were being funny. Like, I thought this was sarcasm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have an operations support agency. We provide process, team, tech support for growing businesses in the online world and also now in nonprofit organization space.
Awesome. I love it. People online like to sell things and they like to make it sound easy. So, easily start your business and get to 6 figures. It's going to be so easy. Or just follow my checklist and you'll be a millionaire, or like all those ridiculous things. And it's not easy. And I think that especially now when, doom and gloom people are out there like, oh, recession and all this kind of stuff, whether that really applies to anything at all. Like all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be hard. Right? I'm hearing that a lot. Yep. I didn't know it was going to be hard. I'm out. Like, you're like, well, yeah, no one told you, did they?
Yep. I feel like I have a lot of colleagues and friends who are like, I'm looking for a job now. And I get it.
Yes.
Like 2 years, like if you started, especially if you started your business during the pandemic, like a lot of us, myself included, it was kind of like that was our option because our corporate job wasn't working out with kids or life, or, panorama childcare was not fun. And so now you have the chance to go back. And from what I've seen, like a lot of employers are valuing that entrepreneurship. Like you spent the last 2 years working really hard and you're like, ooh, we could use that, but I think we're seeing, in my opinion, there's like a reckoning of sorts happening in the online business space of people realizing now just how like it doesn't end. Like it's not, I come from finance and sales, so I understand like you have goals every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. And so like you finish a goal for the month and then you take a breath and then it starts again. And so like I'm kind of used to, I guess, the psychology that you have to get yourself into to have goals like that. And so when you have a business, it's the same way. Like you have a sales goal, like you want to make that 20K month. You hit the 20K month and it's like 2 days and then it's started all over again. Got to hit it again.
Right. Like all of a sudden it's the first of the month again. And you're like, okay,
yeah,
start again. Yeah, I mean, on Wall Street, same thing. Like I understand like that whole thing. You're always hitting some kind of sales number. You're always selling, or you're always kind of pushing to do something. And I think that's a lot of the lie we've been sold in a lot of places is just do this thing and you can have passive income and then go to the beach. Like, I go to the beach a bunch, but I work hard too. Like there's,
yes,
you know what I mean? Like, so I try my very best to not give that impression. Like I'm on a paddleboard on Friday because I made that meeting time because of my sanity, but I was definitely working Saturday afternoon or something. You know what I mean? Like trying to juggle all the things so I can do what I want. And that is what I think that we both agree is should be happening, but that's not what's sold. And I feel bad for a lot of our friends who got here and said, oh shit, I don't want to keep going.
Yeah.
I just want it to start. I want it to just keep running. I don't want to keep getting clients. I don't want to keep building things. And it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And I will say the agency model does have like a lot more of that pressure, a lot more of that constant like elbow grease needed from you, because until you've reached a place where your revenue is like stable, good numbers, and you can bring in your own like internal DO ops manager person, like that's you, especially if you have an operations agency. That's you. And so, when a client folder needs a new template, or, when one of your team members is struggling to update things in ClickUp on time, like all of those things is you. And I think that's the thought load that's not talked about enough. It's beyond just like, we're all ops people. Like we can set up Zapier and ClickUp and Dubsado and make it all flow. But then in real life, when it's happening, there's still that thought load of, okay, well, did so-and-so's contract get signed on time? Like, did the invoice get sent? And that's the kind of pieces that don't stop being your problem, because it's still your business. Even if it's automated and it's happening, you're still thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the load they say moms have, where they're always wondering if the laundry was done, if they have milk for breakfast. Like your brain is never shutting off, and that is in one way like a superpower, and that's why we're so good at ops, because we're always constantly thinking of all the things that need to get done. Right? That's why everything runs well. But at the same time, it's exhausting, and it's very hard to shut off. Which is why I go paddleboarding and go gardening, because I need to be able to do things that shut off that brain, because it does not want to shut off otherwise.
I feel you. You have to.
Yeah. Because otherwise you go insane. You don't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like last episodes, or a couple of episodes ago, I don't even know what episode it was actually at this point. 87 I was talking about how this client is selling his business, and like all of a sudden everything goes crazy. And it's one of those things where I could have said no, but not really. And this is my business, and I have to get in there. Like I'm in there, like making copies of things out of folders. Yeah. Do I run an agency? Sure. But does the work have to get done and I had to jump in? Yep. Like that's kind of the where it is, right? If someone leaves and you've got to cover something, I tend to be the one to get in there. So I'll ask you this, because I think this plays into this. How is your team structured? Do you have many layers? Is it you managing the team? Do you have a DOO, an ops manager, something like that? Like how is it structured?
This is a great question. So currently at time of recording, I'll preface it by saying that I am my own internal ops manager right now. I have a layer of subcontractors. I have a couple people who I would consider project leads, who can, manage the deliverables. So like I'll set the scope and the deliverables, and then they'll manage it and come to me if there's a problem. But I've gotten to a place where we have had some projects that I'm not involved in the deliverables on, which is
exciting
win of my career. And like really, like very honestly, biggest win of my career. But a lot of the projects I'm still directly involved in some capacity, because of the nature of the work, and like my skill set's still like I haven't replaced it yet within my business. So it's mostly just subcontractors. My internal team is very, very lean. I think people would be surprised to know it's me, Heather, my ops coordinator, and a copywriter. That's my internal team. That's it. So that means that everything not listed by copywriter or ops coordinator is me.
Mm-hmm.
And so those have actually been, believe it or not, strategic decisions for this last year. So I could spend a lot of investment in learning everything that needs to go into running the agency from every angle, and before hiring out. So I know I have better expectations. So it was my conscious decision, but it also has made my growth slow, because like people who knew me before I started the agency are like, oh my God, you've grown so fast overnight. But it's also made it slow because I can only sell so much. Because
right, you only have so much bandwidth. Right.
Yeah, because I'm still so involved in everything. So until like I get out of it, I have like a client ceiling, so to speak.
Okay, so you have made this decision on purpose of like you being in the business more. And I think this is a very hot topic on agencies, because some people are like, oh, you can only run an agency if you're out of the work. And I am with you in a way that I have made those decisions on purpose to stay in some of the work for either being able to move money into a different place, or there wasn't a ton of work there. I could do it faster for this thing. Like there was a reason I kept that because it was easier, or because it was financially motivating, or I spent more money on coaching than I did on internal team members, because that's what I wanted to. Rachel's laughing at me right now because she's exactly the same way, because these were the decisions I wanted to make. And instead of everyone saying, well, you have to do this, right? People love to do that. Well, an agency is only an agency if you do it this way, which I hate. I did the same thing. So is there a plan for you to stay here for now? Do you have a plan to get out of everything? Like, where do you see all this going in the short or long term?
Yeah, no, this is a well-timed interview because I feel like now I've spent a year like doing it all. Like, so selling, leading the team, marketing, handling different clients, like all of those pieces. So now I can see, and this has always been, I've always been a get paid to play kind of person. Like I like to, if I know I can deliver on it, I'll offer it and we'll see if I like it. And so we've done that with the agency. And so we're currently restructuring our offers a bit to enable the team to be able to deliver without so much direct input from me, because I have pros on my team. Like I only hire experts. And so I want them to be empowered to deliver it, which means that some of the special sauce that lives in my brain, the clients pay me for, needs to be written down very clearly. And so
yes.
that's what I'm working on, is getting it to where I can step back out of that, because I've realized over the last year that sales is not an area I could step out of yet. So like making those plans is to get me out of the deliverable piece for clients, but then I can stay like focused in sales and marketing and just managing the team, and not have to be like, not like, there's nothing worse than your project manager pinging you and being like, hey, so we have this due on Friday and it's like Wednesday, so are you gonna like put your part in? And I'm like, am I hiring my own boss? I did. It's good, I need it, but also like that's been something that I want to get out of. Like I'm back to a place now where I'm enjoying having a couple one-to-one clients that I work with without the agency involved. And so I'm adjusting my bandwidth accordingly. Because like you said, for me, a lot of the decision was financially motivated too, because I mean, I was a primary breadwinner in my family going into the pandemic, and then I had to leave my job. And so my business has had to support my family from day one. So I've always been like very financially driven.
It's a lot of pressure.
And so it is. And so when I started the agency, I was like, I'd been I hadn't matched my corporate salary fully yet. Like revenue wise, yes. Income wise, no. Which people, we should know the difference. Which that's a whole separate.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Right. And so going into the agency, I was very conscious of the fact that I'm not going to do all this work and continue like underpaying myself. And so I've been working to pay myself more, and I've also invested a lot in coaching. And I choose coaches who are mentors, like who've been there and done that before me, so that I can really learn. And so I worked with two coaches at a high level. One of them, we're just wrapping up a year together, and the other one I did a accelerator program with her. And I learned so much from them that now I'm in the implementation stage. So I'm taking the rest of 2022 off of coaching to implement.
Yeah. I think that's what we have to talk about that, because there's a whole thing. Like, I love to talk about delegation, right? Getting it off your plate. You're not the best person for this, but there is something to be said for not delegating everything just because, right? Like you and I, we need to, like, I wanted to bring the money into my house instead of only taking a part of that money and then paying someone else for it on certain things. There are certain things I really just like to do still. I didn't want to become the CEO of my business that only markets and looks at financials. You know what I mean? Like, that's fun and all, but like, that's not all, like, that's not what I love to do. I like to, make SOPs and pretty spreadsheets and things like that. Like, I didn't want to lose everything. So I intentionally made that decision as well. And I wanted to be around for my kid. I wanted to be able to like go places and take him. This morning I dropped him off at camp. Like, I want to be able to do those things. And that has been a conscious decision as well, away from faster growth and more toward, if you had it on a scale, like more toward a lifestyle I want. Like, there's a good amount of Fridays that I'm either on a paddleboard or I'm with a drink in my hand at the beach, because Fridays in the summer, that's what that means here around here. And that is what I've built, because that's what I wanted, even if it meant less fast growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you've been too.
Oh yeah, no, for the last year, I've had what I call fuck it Mondays because I hate Mondays. Like it's I'm sure it's an old corporate mentality, but they've been like they started out as CEO days and then they became my like mental break days. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll make a bunch of reels and write a bunch of email sequences or social media posts or set up performance reviews for the team. And sometimes I will binge watch old reality TV shows while I eat popcorn on the couch. And I
Whatever you got to do, right?
yeah, and it's been for the last year, it's been an intentional, like I've really protected that time. And it's like that's my time. And so it's been really good to have that. And I feel like it's what enabled me to get through the first year of craziness was having that time where I was like, just gotta make it to Monday. Just gotta make it to
Yep.
Monday. And so having that space is so important. I'm restructuring my weeks now and letting go of my Mondays,
Oh
but
no.
it's for a reason that I'm really happy with. And it means I'll be able to restructure my work weeks to be more present as we go back into the school year with the kids because they've been home all summer. So I haven't like truly had my Mondays anyway, because like we're hanging out.
Yeah, kids are
Um,
loud and they do
but
things they want to do things all day.
yes, no, they always want to do things. I love them, but they're like, can you watch me play this game? Can we? And it's like,
Yes. Look what I
I
built.
know I'm
Look
at
what I
home,
built.
but I'm working.
Look, I put one more Lego on. Look at it now. Look at it now. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes.
get that here too. Yeah. That's why camp is worth every dollar. Uh, so as we're talking about this, so we're talking about the team and the finances around that and the decisions we're making. So how are you looking at um, like the finances in your agency? Because we were just mentioning this a little bit. So I'd love to get into it. How are you paying your team? How are you deciding what you're spending money on? Like, how are you working that in your business?
Yeah, so when I started the agency, I very intentionally wanted to pay my team above average for an operations agency. And so I went into it with that intention. So they invoice me every month for whatever hours they used, or if they're on a project rate, whatever the project was. I actually, good tip for those of you who do profit first, or even don't do profit first, I made a separate bank account called subcontractor payment holding. And so when a client pays me, I pull out the portion of that that's going to the team and just put it away. So I'm not looking at it. I don't see it. It doesn't exist. I don't have it.
Just
So
like
that way I
taxes, and
know.
that way it's out. It's not yours.
Yep.
Yeah.
That way I know, like at the end of the month, there's always money in there. So like no matter what craziness I've signed up for with coaching and programs, there's money to pay the team. And everybody's
People
getting,
really like to get paid. Like I found that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They like to
I know
get
it's
paid.
it's crazy, right? People want their invoices paid on time. That's my other thing. And my other tip is I don't have, and this is something that some friends have said, but I don't have like a invoice me on this date. I'm always very cautious around this whole contractor employee
Mm-hmm.
differentiation. So I'm like, just invoice me once a month, preferably on the first, like, but most of them invoice me on the first because everyone wants to get paid. And so then I just set aside time on the first and the second to just pay all their invoices like when they're received as much as possible. Because I found people love that too.
They
Like if they
really
send you an
do, right?
invoice, like think about when for those of you listening, like when you send an invoice to a client and they pay it within an hour, you're like, ooh, favorite client. Like
Right?
I want to be
Yes.
favorite.
Yeah.
So that's how I structure that.
So do you pay them retainers? Are you paying them after the fact on the work? I'm just curious to see how
After the
you.
fact, yes.
Okay,
So
so I
what
do as well, which I didn't know if other people did. This is why we're doing this series, because I really just want to know how other people do their stuff.
when I first started, I would I would have the new team members for their first month invoice me their first month ahead of time. Like, and then I realized that that's not sustainable because typically the client hasn't paid their invoice yet. And also that doesn't protect me very well if someone were to like, oh great, I got my invoice, bye, because it's their first month. And so I said that I invoice after the work. And I'm guaranteeing you're like that's the benefit of working on an agency, right? Like I'm guaranteeing you're getting paid
Mm-hmm.
and it's my job to get the money from the client. And so it's worked out really well that way, is to have them invoice me after the fact. But I do ask for monthly invoices, um, unless it's like a set project rate. But typically, I feel like I don't want people to go working more than a month without getting paid. Because I do feel like psychologically you lose motivation, even when someone's not like a bad team member, like you just start to lose motivation. So I ask them to invoice me every month, even if it's just like a partial from a project, because I want them to get paid every month. I have my clients pay me every month. Like it just makes sense.
Yeah, I have it right now that I need their hours for any client work that's hourly. They have to have hours in so that I can invoice because some of them are first and the 15th. And then they're like, well, why wouldn't I just invoice you now? Because all the hours are in, we all know what's going on. So that's kind of how it is. Do you find there's a resistance to having people work and get paid afterward? Because I feel like so many of us preach, like you should get paid ahead of time with retainers. But a lot of times if you are working with an agency and getting that subcontractor work, it's kind of hard to match up that like retainer money. I'm hitting my microphone. That retainer money with the hours worked on clients. So do you find there's resistance to being paid afterward?
Not now. When I originally started, there were some people who were a little nervous. They were okay with it, but I think I've made a name for myself in the space as someone who cares about my team. And I don't, to my knowledge, I don't have anyone who's like talking about how much they hated working for me. And I'm very prompt with my invoices. And so I think that people feel comfortable with that now. But when I was first starting out, I was nervous to ask for it. Like I was like, that's why those first few people, I was like, go ahead and like, I know how much I'm going to bill the client. I know how much you're going to get paid for this retainer project. Like, go ahead and bill me and I'll pay you. And then we work against that. But that sucked because those first ones went on my credit card because I hadn't gotten paid from the client yet. And then I spent like the first like 3 days just being like, oh my God, please clear Stripe, like checking, refreshing my Stripe. Like, please clear, please clear, please clear. And it just wasn't, it didn't like long-term cash flow planning. It didn't work out. And the way we structure our retainers. So if a client's working with us on retainer, then they have a set amount of hours. So I know the team member won't go over that amount. So I put that amount of money away. And then for projects, I budget that. And internally I tell the team, like the client, like it's not client facing that there's just many hours, but like, okay, if we're setting up your Monday or your Asana or whatever, like I know we've planned out how many hours it would be, but like, here's your max hour budget. If there's something crazy, you need to go over it, you need approval before going over it. So I set those ahead of time so that everybody knows. And then so that way it's easier for me to pull money out of the invoice and it makes it easier to invoice clients because then their invoice is the same. So they're not like worried about this month is 40 hours and this one's 20 and this one's 60. Like I try to keep it even.
So I feel like the way you're doing it also is a great kind of backstop to not going over what you can afford to pay. So if the client pays you $1,000 for a retainer, and I've seen this a ton, people let their team kind of run amok on the hours, then they end up paying the team $950 of that invoice because they didn't keep to check on what hours would be, worked and what hours were going to be billed and what way. And then they don't end up actually making any money as agency or agency owner. And I think that's a huge fault a lot of times, right? I hear a lot. People come and they go, oh, I've got this agency. I don't make any money at it. And you're like, okay, well, give me your numbers. And you're like, oh God, you really don't make any money. Why are you doing this? So how do you make money here? Are you taking a standard cut? Is it, whatever percentage of the hour, if you charge the client $50, you're charging them 25, like you don't have to give me your real numbers if you want, but how is it a percentage? Like, are you taking, how do you work? How does the cut go?
Yeah. So, and this is inside the inner workings, right? So when we worked together in the DOO, you had a spreadsheet that you gave us to calculate. And so when I originally launched, that's what I used. I've modified it now for like some of the way I mentally think about things, but going into it, and I think the reason why my agency has always been profitable, even if it's not like, I want to preface everything I'm about to say by saying I am not sitting here with 6 figures coming into my bank account every month, toes in the sand. Okay, so just preface everything I'm about to say. But we've been profitable. I haven't been in the red. That's a very big accomplishment.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
And so going in, I figured out how much time I would have to spend. So like if I was part of the deliverable, I price it as if I'm paying a DOO subcontractor. Okay. So I've built that into the retainer. So if it's still me doing it, then I take that home plus my agency owner cut. If it's not me doing it, then I'm just taking the agency owner cut piece, and I do it like that. So we have our agency rate, and then the team members have their individual rates. So some team members cost more, some team members cost less, but I have the flat rate that I bill, and the goal is to always make enough to cover basic operations and potentially pay myself some, which I feel like is a formula that no matter how many people tell you they've figured out, you never fully figure it out. Like I feel like I'm always tinkering with it. Like it's always like what percentage goes where, and then because it depends on other things you're investing in internally. So like when I was looking at what numbers I would need to have to bring in my own DOO and ops manager to help me manage stuff, and like bringing in more marketing support, bringing, like all of those pieces have to come out of it, and those can fluctuate your operating expenses. But I run very lean for the size of my agency. I think we're just under, so now the coaching is done, we're under $2,000 a month in like internal running the business expenses, which is very, very lean.
Yeah, very lean.
And I'm trying to keep it that way. That's the goal. But that means that's my time. So instead of my money going out, it's my time going out to keep the agency going. So it's something that like a caveat to note for those listening. It's either going to be money or your time.
Yeah. And which one do you have more of? Like in the beginning, you have more time, right? You can hustle, you can learn the thing, you can do the thing. And then after a while, it becomes detrimental for you to be doing it when somebody else could be doing it cheaper and faster, because we always think we're the greatest at it. And then somebody else comes in, you're like, oh crap. Why have I been doing this for so many months? They should be doing this all the time, right? That happens to me. And I'm like, Jesus, why am I touching all the things, right? Get that out of the way. And my team, if they're listening to this, is like, yes, can you get out of the way? Because like you were saying, when you're building these packages and you're saying, okay, well, right now I'm the DOO that's doing the work, but I want to be able to have one day someone else be in that role. So I need to make sure that it is, it's a good rate that I can hire someone. And so I love that you're looking at that forward motion of, okay, this is what we're doing, but I'm building for the future so that this is already built in, because a lot of people don't. And then they get 6 months in and they have to like double their rates because now they realize they haven't made $1. And then they have pissed off clients. When if they're kind of building it in ahead of time and saying, okay, well, I need to take agency cut for operations. I need to take my cut as a manager of this whole shebang. And then the DOO has got to pay for something. And then I've got to pay a contractor as a VA. Like all of those people get a cut of this. And I think that that is what a lot of people like kind of leave out when they're pricing. They're like, well, I'm a VA agency and this person's not going to pay any more than this for a VA, but they're not paying for a VA. They're paying for a managed team with a VA, right? Mm-hmm. You're getting all the management and the services and the software and the things, right? You've already done it, the experience. So having all of that built out means that you are ready to grow, where other people would have to make a big mess of it and piss off a whole bunch of people. So good job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. As my former agency coach, I appreciate it.
I'm very proud. And I love that you totally just brought up that spreadsheet. When they were in the, I was trying to explain numbers, and it's hard to talk numbers, especially to non-numbers people like Rachel is. But when you're trying to like explain that concept of like everyone gets their cut and what that is. And I made this like basic spreadsheet. It was like here. And it was just like an example of showing something out. And it's just really cute that you used it. And I love it. And now I'm writing it down because I was like, oh, I wonder if it's in my group program, because I don't know if I put it in there, but no, I have to because you used it. Today's podcast is being sponsored by the Get Your Agency Together group coaching program. This is a program I built for online service providers who either want to start an agency or to grow the agency they have so that it's organized, sustainable, and profitable. Over 5 months, you'll be working with me and the rest of your cohort to break down and rebuild different parts of your business so that they align with the life you really want to build. The modules include systems you'll need, offers you'll make, the team you'll need to build, and the journey your clients will take. Most importantly, you'll have to look at all of these things through the lens of the goals and the values you bring to the table. For more details, go to reynoldsobm.com and join the waitlist. You'll be the first to know when the program opens. See you there. So how do you structure like how do you work the team in a way of, do you have team meetings? Who's delegating the tasks? Are they taking business kind of like, do they have their own clients and then taking the business and they're just running it? Or are you having to kind of delegate that work out? Is it project management tool, Slack? Like, how are you kind of structuring the team communications?
So I'm obsessed with Slack. I actually pay for Slack Premium because I'm obsessed. It's expensive, but I love it. Being able to send audio notes, and what we do is, so in the internal structure of my Slack, I have private channels that are for everyone involved in a client project. So for example, when we do larger projects with organizations where we're maybe like hiring people, tech and processes, that's more than one team member. So we'll have an internal channel where all of us are that the client isn't. And then we'll have a channel with the client so that they can reach the team and we can all correspond. And of course I'm in all of those, so I can see what's going on because I'm me.
You haven't gotten out of it yet. Yet.
Well, and that's the piece, like, that's what I tell my clients too, is like, I like to do the surprise and delight piece of client experience. And so like, even the projects that I'm not directly involved in the deliverables, every now and then I'll pop in the Slack and be like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Like, did you have a great weekend? And like those little things make a difference in your client experience. And so if I'm not in the Slack channel, I can't do that. And it also helps me see, like, it's a good way to see if there's coaching moments for the team, or if there's moments where I'm like, I would have done that differently. Especially in my first year growth phase, like everyone I hired, I was like, you're building this with me. So let's just fix the squeaky wheel. Like, where is it? And like, that kind of collaborative work. So with client work, we have a few different, because I have so many offers, it's not an easy, clear answer. We have retainer work and project work. So for retainer work, the team member, it's pretty much their client. Like me or another DO has come in and like worked with the client a little bit on what the strategic plan will be, are available for like larger scale, like thinking issues or team problems, but they're assigned OBM is like, that's their person. They manage the client. They send weekly reports that I review. They have a ClickUp space where we make like a client SOP just in case something happens to them and they're sick or something.
So important. So important.
And then, yeah, it's like, that's what my anxiety is, like a good thing, because I'm like, oh man, worst case scenario, and then my business brain is like, good idea.
Right, like it's like a superpower, and like you can't ever sleep, right? Yeah.
No, so they do that, and then we have monthly all team meetings, and then once a month I'm now meeting with each of them for 15 minutes. This is like a check-in. I personally hate meetings, which I know is ironic because I run an agency, but we do a lot of Slack check-ins. So like I'll be like audio notes. I talk to every team member on my team every week. I make it a conscious effort to reach out to everyone. Maybe not my copywriter, like maybe not touch my copywriter every week, but I talk to like the ones who, if you have a client and you're working for me and you're working with one of my clients, like we've talked every week, and I'm just like, how are you? How are things? How's it going? What's up? And so that's how I stay on top of everything, so that I know what's going on. Cause like the thing that wakes me up in the middle of the night, and this is what I'm still working on, is like, oh my God, is that thing done? Is it done? Like, I'm not in that client project. Like, I don't know what's happening. What if it's not done? Do I panic? I've set up things to help. So when I have those middle of the night wake ups, like in cold sweat of like, oh my God, I can just go into ClickUp and see, okay, this is where the status of everything is.
So you're not emailing people at 3 a.m.
Yeah. You know what's happening. You can see the weekly progress reports. Yeah. Like, and then when I get really nervous, my team knows. There's a couple, one of my project leads, Monica, I'll just Slack her and be like, hey, so I'm having a panicky agency owner moment. Can you just like update me on this client? And then she'll just update me. And it's like not a big deal. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yes. Especially if I feel like the newer clients where I wasn't in there all the time. I was like, okay, well here, I've done the strategy. Here you go. And then I'm good because they're going to take care of it and they're on it. But the ones that are my long-term clients, it's like, okay, I have to be in there. Like yep. I have two that my first VA client 6.5 years ago is still my client. OBM, we run a lot of things now for him, but I was the one. So there was a time or two that I get a message and they're like, you're the only, I don't even know what he's talking about. You're the only one who'll know. And that's fine because it's a long-term client. Like I am the vault of knowledge in that. So I feel like it's harder on those things because you're sitting there because you know the project and you're like, oh God, did that get done? The newer ones, it's easier. I feel like for anyone who's having a hard time giving up that kind of control, which I think is the hardest thing in an agency, is letting go of that control and getting further and further away and letting people do their jobs. That is like, so I love that we're bringing it up because it is the hardest thing. And it's the thing that everyone freaks out about, but they're going to touch my stuff.
Yeah.
I can't handle it. Right. It's the hardest part, right? They're going to touch my stuff. They're going to mess with my client.
Well, it is. And I was like, and I went into it and I was like, I was prepared for this. I had the right mindset. I was like, they're experts. Like, I'm going to trust them. And then they would do something and I'd be like, I wouldn't have said it that way. But then like, even when I sit down to like, cause so before I do any kind of, I'm going to put this in air quotes, coaching with a team member, I think through what I want to say. And so if I'm going to issue a correction, I'm like, well, what's the correction going to be? And so I would rewrite it. And I literally would have changed like this, like I don't know, something super like anal or retentive here. And so I'm like, okay, so this is probably not worth me bringing up to them because I'm embarrassed just seeing me write this out again. And so it was like that moment I agree. That was really hard. It was a hard hurdle to be like, okay, they know what they're doing. I don't happen to know best about every single thing ever.
Right. And for my
That's why I
husband who will
hired
be
them.
editing this, that doesn't account for you. I do know better in my marriage, but in business is different. And I do have ideas that maybe are not the best sometimes. And I think that the more you bring on team members that excel, you start to realize that maybe you're not the greatest at everything in the world. And maybe other people can do better than you. Or like you said, like it wasn't exactly what you would have done, but it was a great result. So like, I don't need to correct them. I don't need to have that kind of bad coming down on them all the time as a team. Like I really am trying to empower them to make these decisions without me. So being a nitpicker it's counterproductive.
I don't know about you, but I think the most guidance that I've been for my team is around the mindset of managing the client relationship and the sense of not take so the client's struggles and worries, like they're having a low sales month, like not taking that energy on as a service provider because this is what we're
Yes.
responsible for, this is what we can control, this is what our deliverable is. Of course we want our clients to succeed, but at the end of the day, like it's not your business, it's their business. And so they need to make certain decisions, they need to do certain things. As a business owner, you are here to support, to guide, to execute, but you cannot run their business for them. And that's something that I learned very difficultly very difficultly, that's a word now, as a solopreneur. Was I would take that energy on. Like I would be out here, I would be on, like when I was in Facebook groups and I would see like, oh, like someone needs an accountant. So I'd be like, oh my God, you hear this client's great. Like I'm like selling for my client because I'm like, we need to make this month. And I realized that that's not my job. And two, that's not my job. And three, that's not my job.
It's not my
So
job.
like learning that, I think that's been something that I've provided a lot for my team. It's been less about like, how do I approach this project management task or how do I deal with this team member? It's more of like I'm stressed out to the gills, I'm not sleeping, like what, and I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, why are we stressed? Why are we so stressed? Like, let's talk it through. And then really working with them on not owning, like, it's not your business. Like, we're here to help. We're here to support. This is my online business management hill I'm going to die on. It's not my business. Like,
Yeah.
I want to support you. I want to help you. I want you to succeed. And it's not that I don't care, but it's at the end of the day, like I had a client as a solopreneur who paid my retainer, and then I was managing her accounting firm, and she just like didn't answer me for 3 months. Like I was just like, I was leading the team, I was leading the client's deliverables, and like I'm not an accountant. And it's like those experiences have made me very, very clear with clients now. Like we want you to win. I am 100% your cheerleader, and if I see someone need an accountant, your account, I'm gonna tag you because that's how I am. But I refuse to decide what your offer should be priced at. That's your decision. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's some of these things that you have to decide as a business owner. And I think it's important for those of us, especially in operations, not to get caught holding that bag, like, because it's so easy. And so I think for me, that's been the biggest thing that I've worked on with my team.
Yeah, I feel like there are definitely some times where I have cared more than the business owner about their business. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're like, but you're going to miss out on this, or you don't care, or this could be more efficient. And I get more upset about it and they don't care. And you're right. I had to learn that very quickly because I stress myself out. And I think it's also important as agency owners to tell our team it's okay not to lose their minds over a business, right? Because they want to do
Yes.
a really great job for you. My big thing is that I want to be my team's favorite client. They're all contractors. They all have their own businesses, but I want to be their favorite client. I pay them on time. I pay them fairly, if not better than fairly. I take care of them, all that kind of stuff. I want to be their favorite client, but that also means that I won't let the clients drive my team crazy.
Yep.
That's so important because we want to do such a good job and we want the client to be happy, but we sometimes, I feel like agency owners forget that they have to take care of their team or they're going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a conversation around like a turnover because they're not being treated well, they're not being paid well. And why are they leaving? People leave so often. And I think a lot of that is the backup, knowing that the team is backed up by the owner and they are being taken care of in that way and they want to be here. So speaking about that, how do you pick people for your team? Do you have, because you're much more HR than I am. Uh, yeah, I'm like, I've tried doing the rubrics and all the things. How do you pick? Is it very staged out HR like structure to onboard and to pick your team? Like, how do you do that?
I'm so glad you're asking this question. So yes, people is my favorite area of ops. I started out, not my first agency hires, but as a service provider, hiring people who I'd like met and I did an interview. I was like, oh, you're great, we'll get along. And we weren't a good fit for each other like long term. And so I learned that painful lesson then. So going into the agency, every role I've had, I've made, like I've done a job op application interview process and like really interview people. Like when I hired Heather, my operations coordinator, she was my first interview. And I knew when I interviewed her, I was like, I really like her. I really like her. But I was like, no, I owe it to myself to talk to more people. And I wound up coming back and hiring her. And we joke about it now because she's been with me for like 9 months. And we're coming up on our year anniversary. But we joke about it now, but like I've told my team, like even when I do have internal like management roles open and some of my subcontractors have expressed interest in like being a DO for the agency, like I love all of you. I know what you're capable of, but I owe it to myself and to the business to honor my hiring process to make sure I'm finding the best person for this role. So I do the application screens like skill level, like, and granted, of course, you can always say whatever you want on an application, but I ask them like, if there's something specific I need, like ClickUp experience or whatever, like I put that in there. And then the interview is to gauge personality fit for me and for the clients that I know we work with. So like, how will we work well together? I have a rather large team now. So it's like, how will they fit in with each other? Like how will it work? Because for me, the big thing about the team is I want it to be like a mastermind of sorts. So like when one of my team members is working on launching other areas of her own business. And so like she sent out her logos to us to ask us what our thoughts. Like I want those kind of things happening. And so you have to be really intentional when you're hiring to create that kind of culture. And so I'm really looking for like personality fit, ability fit, time fit. I try to be very honest that like our retainer options start at 40 hours a month, but I still sometimes have people who are like, oh, I can only work 20 hours. And I'm like, love you, but need more than that. So it's like, having that, I do have an intentional hiring process. I guess it's the short answer to your question.
Yeah, I feel like you like, no, I do a job application or a job description because I really think that it's almost less for them and more for me to say, this is your role here so that it's much more clear expectations, because I think one, there's not as much confusion as to what everyone the hell is doing all day, but there's also like people want to work and they want to do a good job and they need to know what doing a good job is so they can do it. If you go to work every day and you have no idea what the standard is for a quote good job, you have no idea how to meet that standard, and it's demoralizing. No one wants to work there. So just being, yelled at all the time, everything changes all the time. You're not really sure what you do. You started out as a social media person, but now you're doing like invoicing, like all of that kind of stuff. It creates this chaos and it's a shit culture. So we are very much on, I'm very clear on job descriptions. Agreed. I don't do 7 interviews and rubrics and all that, because I would hate to have to do it for myself. I also hire on fit, but very much personality and culture fit first, because if you're not going to fit in here, it's rough. Like there's 7 of us. There's not an enormous amount of interaction because we're not in meetings. Everyone's a contractor. So we're not like big meetings all the time. But like, when there's that one person who's really just doesn't fit and you're like, ugh, like it brings the whole room down. Right. And I'm a big proponent of, I can teach you a lot of the stuff we need to do. So I am totally fine if you don't have the most experience, unless it's a specific skill. Like I need you to know how to do this. Like I need you to do like my bookkeeper knows how to, do bookkeeping. But other than that, I feel like I can teach a lot of the skills. I can teach you how to use teamwork or whatever, but I can't teach you how to be really detail oriented or follow up on everything all the time or keep me like, I feel like those are things that are much more personality driven. Yeah. So I'm with you on that. Like that is so important because the skills you can learn, or they could say, look, like I'm happily support you while you do this if you want to go learn more things. Yeah.
Yep. No, I agree. Like I definitely have spent a lot of my hiring energy on hiring for people who fill places I feel like I have gaps. So like if you're not great at hiring, like that's fine. Like that's my special sauce. But like I need you to be really good at project management, because I personally, like, this is my whole thing. I was dragged kicking and screaming through DOO about project management. Natalie was telling me the whole time, she's like, "You're a project manager." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And she's like, "Yes, you are." And like, yes, I can, but it's not like a thing I love. I really like taking it and breaking all the tiny little detail pieces, like mapping out a timeline. Yes. Getting into all the tiny little, okay, so this email needs to, like, no, that's not my thing. So I hire for that, because if the client needs to find a team member, that's what I'm really good at. And also there's a lot of parts of this that have helped me learn like what it is I can teach, and what it is actually like my soft skill that I can't teach.
Yeah. And
That's been
they're
a
going to
trick.
be better at it than you are, right? Like we were just saying, like there's sometimes people come in, they're like, "Oh, you are so much better than I am. Okay, you're going to do it all from now on." And that is a fantastic feeling. You're like, "Oh my God," because I've sucked at this whole time, right? There's tons of things, especially when you start out by yourself and then you're kind of trying to keep things in-house for financial reasons, or you're trying to, divert funds to coaching or other programs or investments. And you're doing things and you're like, I am not the greatest at this. Or it's just, you're cranking through it like, ugh. And then someone comes along and does it and they do it really well and you never have to do it again. And that is heaven. That's the easy part of delegating. It's the hard part when you have to, like, when it's yours and you like it and you don't want anyone to touch it. That's the much harder
Mm-hmm.
part of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there were times, like one of my first team members is like a vetted ClickUp consultant. And so like I mean, my agency ClickUp is not like, it's not something I would give a client, put it that way. But it's what's worked for my brain. And she was like, "Oh, we need to change this. We need to change this." And like my first initial reaction was like, "Don't touch my ClickUp."
Uh-huh.
But then it was like, I was like, "Okay, take a deep breath." And I was like, "So I appreciate where you're coming from, but I feel like you're telling me my child is ugly. So I need a second to process this before we can have this conversation."
Uh-huh.
And that's a piece nobody tells you about having team members who are smarter than you, is like,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. And actually, that's a lesson I learned in corporate when I first started managing the finance office. A DM that I met at the team meeting, he's like, "How's hiring going?" We were talking about it, and I was like, I like to hire people that I can mentor. And he's like, "Why don't you hire people who are better than you?" And I was like, that feels like a trap. And he's like, "Hire people who are better than you, because they're going to make you be better." And
Yep.
that's been my mindset coming into the agency. I'm like, I want you to be better than me. Like,
And that's hard ego-wise, right? I
mm-hmm,
feel like there is an enormous amount, especially in the last couple of months, where like all hell is broken loose here. I feel like the mindset work that I've been working on for the last couple of years is like hardcore coming in now.
yep,
Like
yep.
letting people do things. Like I had 400 hours booked in June. There's no way I could have done that myself. Like I physically could not have. Like I had to trust someone else who frankly was almost brand new. And I was like, "Okay, let's see if you don't mess this up right this second." Like I was giving her things that were on my plate so that were on my own, like my own stuff, so that I could do client work. And then I was like, "You're fantastic and you are doing this better than I am. Why the hell am I in here?" And that is a wonderful point. And I think like once you get to that mindset of like having your ego, let it be okay for others to be better than you at these things, it's so much easier. But your ego gets in the way and you're like you said, "You're telling me my kid's ugly." Like, like, oh, and that's too
Mm-hmm.
hard. It's too hard. Like
It is.
the mindset work is so much of this. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's because business is it's a mind fuck, right? Like
It
you are
really is.
constantly like, right? You're constantly like, "I'm going to put out posts and people are going to make fun of me," or "I'm going to put a post and no one's going to care. I'm going to do this work." And it's like everything is mindset about it. Not just falling into a ball on the floor crying sometimes. And I think that we
Mm-hmm.
all still do. Not that we don't really talk about it, but I think that we all still are like losing our minds. I'm sure if like you could interview my husband and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, she's a disaster half the time." Or I have to come in and vent to him just to get it. Like I'm trying not to vent to him because the poor man. But you know what I mean? Like all of that energy, it's all this mindset work of like, I am good at this. I can sell this. Like it's all hard. And I think
Yep.
that really kind of brings us back to where we started. But
Yeah.
so
No, oh, sorry.
go.
My wife doesn't take me seriously anymore when I'm having those entrepreneur lows, as I fondly call them, because she's like, "I know this is going to end. You're going to achieve some kind of achievement. It's going to make you excited and you're going to be all excited about it." Like the first 6 months was really hard. And we would go through those together and I would be like all freaking out about like, am I going to sell this? Is someone going to sign this? Can I deliver this? All freaking out about everything. And now she's just like still playing her game on her phone and like, "Yep, Yep. Because she knows. She's like, you're gonna be fine. I know you're gonna be fine. Like,
it's like part of your process.
When are you gonna know you're gonna? Yeah.
I need to freak out first, and then I can breathe, and then I can be like, well, of course I'm gonna figure it out. I always figure it out. But there is that process. You have to freak out first sometimes.
Yep.
So what makes your agency different, Rachel?
I think it's a few pieces. I think one of them is that I really am good at holding my team's boundaries. And even coming up with new ones that they don't have that they should. So there's that I'm really invested in each of them individually. So there's an element that every member of my team has taken advantage of in some way, shape, or form for the most part, of like almost like coach consulting for like like a mentorship. And I think I haven't worked for an agency, so I don't know, but from some of the other ones who've worked for other agencies, it sets me apart because when I ask you how you're doing, I really mean how are you, not just like how's my work. I'm like, how are you? And so when team members have had losses or illnesses or something, like I'm the person who will send you, and if you live in the States, an Instacart of like chicken soup. Like that's, and I try to pay attention, and I think that really makes a difference also in our deliverables. So like all of our clients are like, wow, like everybody really cares, everybody really shows up, everyone's responsive, and I really know it's because of the energy that I put into nurturing the team individually so that they can put that out for the clients. And I think that really sets us apart. And the fact that everybody's an expert in something. So like everyone on my team is literally expert level in something. And so I can tap into that for our clients so they really feel that difference. I think that's what really sets us apart.
Yeah. And I think that energy, you can totally feel that as a client. Like they know that we're going to show up and we're going to be there, and right. We are the person that's going to take care of it all. And they can rely on us because we can rely on our team. And that becomes a big problem when that culture isn't there. And that's when you get that turnover, and then you can't rely on people. And then, right. And then it's chaos. Taking care of your people is a big deal. Hear me, people. It is a big deal.
It is. Invest your time and energy into it, and money. Like I made a post about this, I don't even know, like months ago. And I was like, your team loves you checking on them, and they love you remembering their dog's name. They love your money more. So like, like a card's nice, but I ask all my team members similarly to my clients when they start. I'm like, what is your love language? Like, how do you prefer? And I make money a drop-down option they can select, because I think people are like nervous to put money in, but if I made it an option, they'll choose it. And I have team members who instead of sending you a birthday card, I'll just PayPal you, $25 or something, go get a coffee. Like, you like money, here's your money.
Right. Like some people like a big, beautiful box of something they'll never buy for themselves. And some people want cash because they're saving for something, or they're, preschool's expensive, or, like all those kind of things. Yeah. I think that's really important. And just, that is my favorite part of my agency, is being able to have like this group of women that I can chat with. Like it's hard sitting in this office by myself all the time, because Brian doesn't want to talk about this all the time. You know what I mean? Like he's had enough. He's had enough of my freakouts. You know what I mean? So like being able to have like, water cooler talk. Like that's the thing you don't get you don't get when you leave corporate, is you don't get to walk over to someone else's desk and tell them about what you did yesterday. So that having that team and having that kind of friendship there, it's my favorite part, because you get to be professional, and I love helping them with their businesses as well. Like that's a great part. Okay, Rachel, I have had such a fantastic time seeing your face, although nobody else can see your face. Trust me, I can see it. I have had the best time talking to you today. And why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah. So I'm at Mastermind Business Services everywhere, or at Rachel Pereyra, Pereyra.
Awesome. I will put that all in the show notes as well, so that you guys can find Rachel, and you should definitely go find Rachel. And Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This has been so fun. I love this conversation.
And I will see everyone else next week. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have an agency or want to create one, come join my Facebook community, Get Your Agency Together, where we talk all the things growing and scaling your agency. For show notes and more info on all the things, head over to ReynoldsOBM.com. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook at ReynoldsOBM, And finally, if you enjoy this podcast, I would love for you to give us a review on iTunes.